No shock here, N'Golo Kante has won the PFA Player of the Year award. He beat out his own teammate in Hazard during the voting. There's so many reasons why N'Golo Kante was a Player of the Year this year, but one of the best things that you could say is that if things do go to plan, and I'm going to take the mental advantage that Chelsea could have taken over Tottenham at the weekend in the FA Cup, could have retained the Premier League title because of him. He could have led two teams back to back, completely different on opposite ends of the scale as far as quality running throughout, winning a Premier League, one of which, when he left, crumbled like a house of cards for a huge part of the season, showcasing that they took almost 20 games to figure out how to play without N'Golo Kante.
Crumbled like a house of cards. You do not disrespect the team that could have made the Champions League semi.
Yeah, very true. They could have.
For whatever reason.
But where does this rank as among surprises? Sky's blue, grass is green, blah, blah, blah. N'Golo Kante expected to win this year.
How old is it? First of all, Kante, by the way, was a $35 million transfer, I believe. £35 million, not dollar, million pound transfer, which for becoming PFA Player of the Year is 1/3 of Pogba, I believe. It's about 2.5 Pogba.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, they're very different players. But it just goes to show money cannot necessarily buy you the best player in the Premier League.
Yes.
And you have to be smart with who you pick. And in this case, there's a card. Because I love stats.
Well, this guy oozes stats, and all the stats that often don't get you glory, but the good stats.
They are, and he just kind of shows how balanced he is. He's second in the Premier League for total tackles made, third for tackles for game, seventh in total interception, the highest of any Chelsea player. He's completed the 5th most passes. If any player in the Premier League has a pass success of 88.8% is what's missing there. He's also played, there's only like two, I think John Terry's the only player on Chelsea who's played more minutes. He's been durable. He's been there the whole season.
It's remarkable simply because I like to see those statistics. Like there's so many things that make him great. His intuition is, for me, #1. That's because he always will try to gauge where the ball should go just based on what other players work off. So his intelligence, he's always there. He anticipates. His anticipation, much like that of, I always sing the praises of Ricardo Carvalho at Chelsea when they won the Premier League the first time under Jose Mourinho. Not the biggest guy, but that partnership with him and John Terry was unbreakable. That's why they had one of the best defensive records, because Terry was a big bruiser winning the headers. And Carvalho, what I used to always be taught when I was a defender, similar, is that you got to imagine your fellow centre-back, despite how good he is going to miss that ball. So if they go up for a header, you're in behind, you cover, you clean up, everything goes to plan. And N'Golo Kante does that in the middle of the park. He estimates that whether it's Matic, Fabregas, who, by the way, he plays with seamlessly, regardless who you put in there, he's going to fit in no problem. But he'll always estimate where he thinks the ball will go, worst case scenario. And if it's there, he's there and he cuts it out. His IQ is second to none.
It's like if the ball is a planet, he is the moon in orbit.
Yes,
around it. He'll always be somewhere near it. Gravitational pull.
And one of his most underestimated qualities is his ability on the ball. He's not known for his goal-scoring ability. I know you got that random goal against Manchester United.
One goal
against United. But it's his ability to keep the game progressing. Because one thing that I loved about Claude Makelele, which was often underrated, was his passing ability. Because he was such a hard tackler and he was stable. And N'Golo Kante is a little bit more energetic than Makelele was. Makelele, the older he got, would preserve his energy and just be in those positions rather than running and then ending up in that position. Kante's still at that age, he's only 26, he's everywhere, so then he can make it back. 26 years of age, but his ability to keep the game moving, he's not going to get the ball, put his head up and ping a 40-yard pass, but he'll find room for Fabregas to do that, or Matic, because he just connects. He just will be in this position, all right, I'll move it on to here. I'll move it from A. They're trying to go from A to C, he's constantly to B in the middle. Just always connecting passes. There you go. That's an analogy you'll take home and put it on the fridge.
It's the birds and the bees.
That's it. The birds and the bees in N'Golo Kante style. So people thought it was a little hard done by last year when Riyad Mahrez beat him out for Player of the Year in Leicester squad.
There you go.
Mahrez was more quantifiable.
He was better.
Yeah, he picked it up this year, definitely.
But that's the point. Mahrez was more quantifiable, and I think what's great about Kante getting it is that it didn't go to a quantifiable player. I mean, you can throw out all the numbers. I did just for context, but I've always been a fan of the I guess you could say contrarian vote, just because you can always just hand it to Romelu Lukaku because he scored the most goals in the Premier League.
Yeah.
You can always just hand it to the guy who scores the most goals, which in La Liga it's just different because there's only 2 players who can rightfully pretty much win it every year. If you throw in Griezmann, sure, 3. But it's always quantifiable, and it will never go to a defender. Is there awards for just defenders? There needs to be just a European Best Defender award.
Yeah,
because you should get starting 11 if you make the whole.
He'll make the starting 11, I'm sure. I don't know if there's any defensive midfielder in the world, I think, that could they could rival him, even though Chelsea haven't competed in the Champions League. Like Busquets, there or thereabouts. Casemiro, not bad. Vidal, I don't think Vidal's much of a defensive midfielder.
How many guys are you picking with red cards at the moment?
Yes, very true. Like the thing about Kante is he's like defensive midfielders are
defined.
They're diamonds in the rough at times. Like when you get a good one, you got to hold on to it. That's why Real Madrid really struggled to replace Maxwell when he left, and Barcelona made Busquets into the perfect style of defensive midfielder. But N'Golo Kante kind of is bringing back those days of Makelele, because he's an enforcer in the middle, and he wins every single second ball, first ball, he's there. So, and he's very small as well. That's the thing. He's not a tall guy. He's not, but he uses his body very well. And he's got the calves the size of the moon.
Tree trunks is what you're looking for. But
you said the moon. So it was in my head.
They're very round.
Yeah. So I don't know how much there is else to talk about other than Alexis Sanchez keeping Arsene Wenger hired for another year, I would imagine. So yeah, so he basically said,
thank you for that. The transition was the best I've ever heard.
When they defeated Manchester City in extra time.
Yes.
And they will now face Chelsea in the FA Cup final to try and grab silverware. Chelsea will be, I'm sure, thinking about a domestic double, which would be remarkable considering they finished 10th last year.
But also, I mentioned the FA Cup too because it throws a wrench. There's a Manchester derby this week on Thursday.
Yes.
At noon. Tottenham plays Crystal Palace. Arsenal plays Leicester on Wednesday. Chelsea plays tomorrow against Southampton. These teams have murderous schedules.
Yep.
And they also play, Tottenham plays Arsenal this weekend on Sunday. So they have a Wednesday and a Sunday match. 3 matches in 7 days for a lot of these top 3, 4, 5 teams. So the FA Cup might have come at the worst possible time for some teams.
Yeah, no doubt. The only thing that I mentioned at the start of the clip, we may as well just finish with it. I don't know, man. Like, Tottenham rested a couple of players, but they also went out to win that game, and they were the better team for large parts of the first half. And I thought that they looked good and were going to take that victory. But Chelsea, as resilient as they've been all year,
tough to
end up hitting them for an extra 2 at the end. So I think, I really don't know if it's going to be a mental advantage for Chelsea going in, because as we mentioned before, Tottenham have very tough couple of games ahead. They have to play...
they have to play Big Sam, right?
Yes, so Crystal Palace, I think they're going to win that game, but I think they're going to come away victorious against Palace. But then Arsenal, who, as we know, nothing would make Arsenal fans feel like it's an accomplished season if they just messed up Tottenham's title chances. That's exactly what we're thinking about here. And then it comes down to the wire. So we'll see how things pan out. But Chelsea, I think that could have been a big moment in the title race, despite it being in the FA Cup.
I agree.
Let us know what you think in the comment section below. I don't even think there's a debate. If you think N'Golo Kante should not have won Premier League Player of the Year, I don't know what to tell you. You're on the wrong channel.
No. Go away.
A couple other channels you could go and watch.
Go away, don't come back.